A 10-year-old girl comes home carrying newborn twins. Her mother immediately dials 911. Before the story begins, share in the comments where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The sunlight filtered through the thin lace curtains, painting soft golden stripes on the hardwood floor of Karen Davis's modest kitchen. The ticking clock was the only sound as she stirred a pot of oatmeal on the stove. Her mornings had become a quiet ritual ever since Ashley had vanished, a memory that haunted her nightly as she lay awake, replaying the afternoon when her 10-year-old daughter walked home from school and never arrived. Desperate, Karen had called everyone she knew. When no one had seen Ashley, she had alerted the police. That day had marked the start of a year-long nightmare, with no clues and a constant, aching question: where was Ashley? A sudden knock at the door startled Karen, causing her to spill a bit of oatmeal on the counter. Expecting perhaps the mail carrier or a friendly neighbor, she opened the door and froze. Standing on the porch, shivering from the chill, was Ashley. Her once bright hair was disheveled, her cheeks sunken, and her clothes were damp from the morning dew. In her arms, she cradled two tiny babies swaddled in thin blankets. Their soft cries were urgent, as if they had not been fed for hours. Karen's heart pounded, and her mind could hardly grasp what she was seeing. "Ashley," she whispered, her voice breaking. The girl looked up with hollow blue eyes that were unmistakably her own. "May I come in?" Ashley asked. Karen could barely respond. Her body moved on autopilot as she stepped aside to let her daughter in. As Ashley crossed the threshold, Karen's eyes darted to the sleeping babies. Who were they? Where had they come from? And how was it even possible? "Ashley," Karen said again, her voice trembling, "what is going on? Where have you been?" Ashley sank onto the couch, clutching the babies tightly, as if afraid someone might take them away. "Mom," she whispered, voice barely audible, "I can't talk about it yet. Please, please don't call anyone." Karen's instincts screamed at her to grab the phone and call for help. After all, her daughter had been missing for a year, and now she had returned malnourished and carrying newborns. Nothing made sense. Tears welled in Ashley's eyes as she pleaded, "Mom, please. If you call them, they'll find us. I can't go back, they'll hurt the babies." The weight of those words struck Karen like a blow. "They'll hurt the babies? Who are you talking about? What happened to you?" Karen knelt in front of Ashley, gently placing a trembling hand on her knee. "Sweetheart, I need to understand. Are you in danger? Who are they?" Ashley shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I can't tell you yet, but I promise, Mom, I'll tell you everything when it's safe. Just don't call anyone." Karen's heart wavered between the urge to protect her daughter and the need for answers. Her fingers hovered over the phone on the coffee table, but the fear in Ashley's eyes stopped her. Finally, Karen swallowed hard and said, "All right, I won't call anyone, but you have to promise me that when you're ready, you'll tell me everything." Ashley nodded, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her worn sweater. Karen sat down next to her, her mind racing with questions that had no clear answers yet. Karen Davis sat in the quiet living room of her modest home, the early morning light barely warming the chill that had settled in her bones. Across from her on the worn sofa, her 10-year-old daughter Ashley clutched the tiny, swaddled twins. Their eyes, one pair so full of fear, and the other brimming with tired hope, met Karen's with silent questions. For a long moment, neither spoke. The heavy silence was filled only by the soft ticking of an old clock and the distant murmur of life outside. Karen reached out gently, brushing a stray lock of hair from Ashley's face. "I promise you, sweetheart, I will help you. I want to know what happened and why you are in danger," she said softly. Ashley's eyes shimmered with tears as she nodded. "I will tell you everything when I'm ready," she repeated, echoing her earlier words. In that moment, Karen resolved that she could no longer sit quietly. The painful year of waiting and endless worry had taught her that silence was no longer an option. Even though every instinct screamed for her to call the police or reach out for help, the fear of what might happen if she did forced her to choose a different path. Instead, she decided that they would take matters into their own hands. A plan begins to form. Later that morning, while Ashley slept fitfully in the small guest room, Karen sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and pen. The paper was filled with rough notes and questions. Who were the people that had taken Ashley? What was this secret New Dawn medical that haunted their lives? And how could a little girl, barely 10 years old, have survived such horrors and even given birth to twins? Karen remembered the half-whispered words from Ashley, the mention of a place that resembled a hospital but was not one, and the promise that they had done experiments. The thought made Karen's hands tremble as she scribbled down every detail she could recall. She wrote, Ashley said, "They took me to a place where they did tests and gave me shots. They said I was special." Karen underlined the word special repeatedly. It was a key clue. In her heart, she knew that if she could uncover the truth behind New Dawn Medical, she might finally have a way to protect Ashley and the twins. Karen recalled that before Ashley had returned, she had tried calling every friend, every family member, and even some private investigators. Nothing had come of it. The police, burdened with cold cases and long-forgotten leads, had closed the file on Ashley's disappearance. But Karen was not willing to let go. Now, with Ashley back changed, fragile, and burdened with secrets, Karen felt a renewed determination. She would find out what had really happened, and she would expose those responsible, gathering clues and contacts. That afternoon, after Ashley woke up and a quiet meal was shared in a tentative silence, Karen sat down with her computer. Her heart pounded as she searched for any mention of New Dawn Medical online. The few snippets she found were vague references. A small, secretive research facility operating off the grid, a project that was never mentioned in any official record, and rumors of experiments that bordered on the unethical. Every word confirmed her worst fears that her daughter had been caught in something far more sinister than anyone had imagined. Determined to learn more, Karen reached out to a trusted acquaintance who worked in local journalism, a friend named Marcus. Marcus had once reported on cases of corporate wrongdoing and government cover-ups, and Karen hoped that he might be willing to listen to her story. Over the phone that evening, she explained everything in a soft, trembling voice. "Marcus, please, you have to help us," she pleaded. "My daughter, Ashley, was missing for a year. She has come back, but she is not the same. She has twins, and she said they did experiments on her. They call it New Dawn Medical, but nothing about it is normal." Marcus listened carefully, his tone compassionate yet measured. "Karen, this sounds serious," he said. "I promise I'll look into it. Give me a day or two to see what I can find, and I'll call you back. In the meantime, please keep Ashley safe. And Karen, be careful. If there is any truth to this, you might be dealing with dangerous people." Karen's heart clenched. "I understand," she whispered. "I just want my daughter to be safe." That night, after Marcus had hung up, Karen sat by Ashley's bedside. The room was dark except for the soft glow of a bedside lamp, and the twins slept quietly in a small bassinet. Ashley's eyes were wide open as she stared at the ceiling. Karen gently took her daughter's hand. "Ashley, I know you're scared. I promise I'm here, and we're going to get through this together. But I need you to trust me and tell me everything. even the little things. It might help us understand what we're dealing with." Ashley hesitated, her voice soft and trembling. "Mom, I remember dark rooms, strange machines, and people who didn't smile. They said I was special. I remember feeling different. And then one day, I woke up, and the babies were there. I can't remember how I did it, but I know they took me away and did things experiments." Karen squeezed Ashley's hand. "I promise you, sweetheart, we'll find out the truth. You are not to blame for what happened. Those people are responsible." A risky meeting. The next morning brought a grim determination. Karen and Ashley spent the day quietly gathering what little they could. Karen took copies of newspaper clippings from the local library and printed out anything she could find on New Dawn Medical, even if the information was scarce. Every scrap of evidence became a part of her growing case. Late that afternoon, a knock came at the door, a knock that sounded both urgent and cautious. Karen opened it to find a man in a worn leather jacket, his eyes dark and alert. He introduced himself as David Reed, a private investigator who had heard whispers of New Dawn Medical while working on a related case. "I know you're in trouble, Mrs. Davis," he said quietly. "I've been following some leads, and I believe I can help you understand what you're up against." Karen hesitated, glancing at Ashley, who stood silently behind her. "How did you hear about us?" Karen asked, voice weary. David's gaze softened slightly. "I've been working on cases like this for a long time. When I heard about a missing child who suddenly returned with twins and strange stories about experiments, I knew I had to look into it. I'm not here to harm you, I want to help." He handed her a small card with his contact information. "Call me anytime, but be careful. There are people who would do anything to keep their secrets hidden." That evening, as the sky turned a deep blue, Karen sat with Ashley and David in the living room. Over cups of weak coffee, David explained what he had discovered. New Dawn Medical is not listed in any public records. They operate in the shadows. There are rumors that they are connected to a larger network, a group that funds secret experiments and uses children with unique genetic markers as test subjects. I've seen similar cases in other states, but nothing as extreme as what you describe." Ashley listened, her eyes growing distant as if she were reliving the nightmare. "They said I was special," she whispered. "They said I had a mutation that made me unique. I don't understand it, Mom." Karen's voice was gentle yet firm. "We'll figure this out together, Ashley." "David, what can we do now?" David leaned forward. "First, we need to gather more evidence. I can help with that, but it will be risky. We have to be discreet and careful. I suggest we start by finding any records, any leaked documents, or any witnesses who might know about New Dawn Medical. There are a few people who used to work there, but they're in hiding for a reason. If we can contact them, we might learn the truth about what they did to Ashley and why they did it." Karen's heart pounded. "And what if they come after us? I can't lose Ashley again." David's eyes were steady. "I promise you, Karen, I've been in situations like this before. I have contacts and resources that can help us stay one step ahead. But you have to be prepared to leave at a moment's notice if things get dangerous." The meeting ended with David giving them a list of names and addresses that he hoped might lead to former employees of New Dawn Medical. Karen clutched the list in her hand as the door closed behind David. "We have to follow these leads," she told Ashley, voice resolute. "For our safety and to find the answers we need." The search for truth. Over the next few days, Karen and Ashley lived in a state of quiet urgency. They moved about their home like shadows, careful not to attract attention. Every sound, every knock on the door, filled them with dread. But as Karen reviewed the list that David had provided, she began to notice small details that sparked hope. One of the names on the list was that of a man named Leonard Price. According to the note, Leonard had worked at New Dawn Medical as a technician before he suddenly disappeared. Karen decided that contacting him might be their best chance for understanding what had happened to Ashley. With trembling fingers, she dialed the number listed on a crumpled piece of paper. The phone rang several times before a gruff voice answered. "Hello? Mr. Price? My name is Karen Davis. I am calling about my daughter, Ashley. I understand you used to work at New Dawn Medical." There was a long pause before the man replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." Karen pressed on softly. "Please, sir, I just want to know the truth. My daughter was taken by them. They said I was special. I need to understand what happened." A sigh came through the phone. "Look, I haven't spoken about it in years. But if you're sure you want answers, meet me at a small diner on 3rd Street at 7 p.m. But be careful, this isn't something they want discussed." The call ended abruptly, leaving Karen's heart pounding in her ears. That evening, under a bruised sky, Karen and Ashley took a cautious taxi ride to the diner. The neon sign flickered overhead as they stepped inside, and in a quiet booth in the corner, a man in his late 40s with tired eyes and a hesitant smile sat waiting. "Are you Karen Davis?" he asked in a low voice. "Yes," Karen replied, her voice thick with emotion. "And you are Leonard Price?" Leonard nodded slowly. "I used to work for New Dawn Medical. I was a lab technician, involved in some of the experiments. I didn't know what I was part of until it was too late." He looked down at his hands, scarred and trembling. "I left the company after I realized they were doing something very wrong." Karen's hands clenched around Ashley as she urged him, "Please, tell me everything. My daughter, she was taken by them. They said I was special." "What did they do?" Leonard's eyes filled with sorrow. "They called it Project Genesis. They searched for children with certain genetic markers traits that they believed would allow them to create enhanced immune systems. They did tests, injections, and all sorts of experiments. They told us it was for the good of science, for the future of medicine. But it was never about saving lives, it was about control, about creating something new. And they never wanted us to know the truth." He paused, glancing around nervously. "When I tried to leave, they made it very clear that I could never speak about it again. I was lucky to escape." Karen's voice was barely audible. "My Ashley," she said, "they told her she was special. They said they were doing tests on her. And she came home with twins. How is that possible?" Leonard leaned in closer. "There is something unique about her genetics. I don't know all the details, but I remember whispers among the staff. They believed that certain children had a natural mutation, something that made them ideal for their experiments. Ashley was one of those children, though she was just a kid. And those twins, they might be the result of something they did to her, a side effect of their experiments." "I'm so sorry." Karen's heart shattered at his words. "I need to get her away from them," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I need to keep her safe." Leonard's expression hardened with determination. "There's more. I managed to keep a small file, a copy of a report that details some of the experiments and the names of several subjects. I can give it to you, but you must promise to be extremely careful. They have eyes everywhere." Karen nodded firmly. "I promise." Leonard handed her a battered envelope. Inside were several photocopies of documents, lab logs, notes, and even a page that read, "Subject: Ashley Davis, status: active recovery pending." Karen's hand shook as she held the evidence. This was the proof she needed. Escalation and danger. In the days that followed, the tension in Karen's home grew thicker. Every knock at the door, every unexpected car passing by made them jump. Ashley's eyes, once filled with a quiet sadness, now shone with a mixture of fear and determination as she began to ask more questions. "Mom, why did they take me? What do I have that makes me so special?" Ashley asked one rainy evening as Karen tucked her into bed. Karen hugged her daughter tightly. "I don't know, sweetheart. But I promise I will find out, and I will make sure that you and the babies are safe. You are not alone." Karen spent long hours poring over Leonard's documents. The pages were filled with technical language that she struggled to understand, but the repeated mentions of Project Genesis and the chilling note about her status left no doubt. New Dawn Medical had marked Ashley as a subject of interest. In her search for clarity, Karen contacted Marcus, the journalist. Marcus had met with her earlier and promised to dig deeper into the organization's background. A week later, Marcus called. "Karen, I've been talking to a few sources. There are rumors that New Dawn Medical is just the front for a larger network. They are funded by wealthy investors who want to control future medicine, but behind it all is a darker goal: creating children with engineered traits, children who can be controlled. I have a contact in the state health department who might have more information. I'll arrange a meeting, but you must be ready. This is dangerous work." Karen listened, her voice steady despite the fear. "Marcus, thank you. I need to do this for Ashley and for the twins. Please keep me updated." That evening, as Karen and Ashley sat at the kitchen table with Leonard's documents spread out, the atmosphere was heavy with foreboding. Karen's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Meeting confirmed. Location: Jefferson Community Center, 6 p.m. tonight. Come alone if possible. Stay alert." Karen knew the risks. But with every piece of evidence, every whispered conversation, she was drawn deeper into the world that New Dawn Medical had created, a world of secrets, experiments, and people willing to do unspeakable things in the name of progress. She gently explained the situation to Ashley, trying to reassure her, though her own heart was filled with dread. "I'm going to meet with someone tonight who might help us learn more. I promise I'll be careful, and I'll come back as soon as I can." Ashley nodded, and for the first time since her return, there was a spark of hope in her eyes, a belief that perhaps the truth would set them free. The meeting at Jefferson Community Center. Under an overcast sky, Karen left the house shortly after Ashley fell asleep. With the envelope of evidence tucked securely in her purse, she took a taxi to the Jefferson Community Center on the outskirts of town. The building, once a lively hub for community gatherings, now looked deserted and eerie in the dim light of early evening. Inside, Karen found a small room where a man in a plain suit waited. Marcus's contact, a woman named Rebecca Moore, greeted her with a cautious smile. "Ms. Davis, I'm Rebecca. I work with the state health department. I've been investigating unusual funding and secret projects in private labs, and I believe New Dawn Medical is one of them." Karen's voice was hushed. "Rebecca, please, I need to know what they did to my daughter. I have these documents, and Ashley, she said they did experiments on her. They call it Project Genesis." Rebecca's eyes darkened as she listened. "I've seen similar reports. There are whispers about children with certain genetic traits being used for experimental treatments. I can't confirm everything, but I have confidential sources who have seen internal memos from New Dawn Medical. They indicate that the company is involved in unauthorized genetic research, and that some subjects are children. I'm sorry, Ms. Davis. I know this is difficult." Karen felt a surge of anger and grief. "I need to expose them. I need to keep Ashley and her babies safe." Rebecca leaned forward. I can help you build a case, but you must be careful. The people behind this are very powerful. They have connections in government and business. I can arrange for a secure way to send your documents to the proper authorities, but once you do that, you may be a target. I advise you to consider relocating, at least temporarily." Karen swallowed hard. The idea of leaving her home, the one place where she'd fought so hard to bring Ashley back, filled her with both sorrow and relief. "I understand. I just want my daughter safe." Rebecca offered a small packet of printed documents. "Here is some information I have. It's not much, but it's enough to start a case against New Dawn Medical. And Ms. Davis, please take this." She handed Karen a burner phone with a single number saved. "Call this number if you need urgent help. It's our secure line." Karen accepted the phone with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she whispered. After the meeting, Karen left the community center and hailed a taxi home. As she sat in the back seat, she reviewed the documents Rebecca had given her. The files were full of technical terms, but a few details caught her eye: names of doctors, dates of experiments, and references to subject recovery and genetic blueprint. One line in particular sent a chill down her spine. Subject: Ashley Davis. Prognosis: unknown. Special characteristics: enhanced immunity. Procedure: experimental. Karen's thoughts raced. How had New Dawn Medical known her daughter's name? Was it possible that they had been tracking her even before she vanished? The questions multiplied, but one thing was clear: she had to act quickly. Returning home and preparing for the next step. When Karen returned home, the house felt different. The once familiar walls now seemed to hide secrets in every corner. Inside, Ashley was awake in the living room, quietly playing with the twins. The children's soft giggles and coos contrasted sharply with the tension that filled the space. Karen gathered Ashley in her arms and explained, "We're going to do something tonight. I have to meet with some people who can help us. I need to send these documents to someone who can bring New Dawn Medical down." Ashley looked up with wide, trusting eyes. "Will you be back, Mom?" Karen hugged her close. "I promise, sweetheart. I'm doing this to make sure you and the babies are safe. You must be very brave, okay?" The safe house and the long night. The train ride was long and quiet. Karen clutched the envelope and the burner phone, her eyes fixed on the dark window, as the countryside passed by in silent testimony to the normal life that now seemed like a distant memory. In her mind, she replayed every detail of the past weeks: the disappearance, the haunting return of Ashley, the whispers of experiments, and the promises of secret help. At last, the train arrived in a small town that looked almost too peaceful, a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. Karen was met by a local contact, a man named Robert, who drove a battered pickup truck. Robert was gentle and kind, with kind eyes that belied a lifetime of hardship. "Miss Davis, I'm here to take you to a safe house," he said softly. "We'll be very discreet. I promise." The safe house was a modest cabin on the outskirts of town, hidden by tall pines and surrounded by a thick forest. Inside, the cabin was sparse but warm. Robert helped Karen settle in, ensuring that there were no signs of surveillance or unwanted visitors. Once he left, Karen locked the door and sat in silence. With trembling hands, she called the secure number on the burner phone. A calm, measured voice answered, "This is Agent Collins." "What is your status?" "Agent Collins, this is Karen Davis," she said. "I have evidence against New Dawn Medical. I have documents that show my daughter, Ashley, was used as a subject in their experiments. I need to send these files to the proper authorities. Please advise." There was a brief pause. Understood, Ms. Davis. I will provide you with a secure link to upload your documents. Once received, we will activate an investigation. I must warn you, however, that this will put you in immediate danger. You need to remain hidden until further notice. Karen's voice shook as she replied, I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect Ashley and the twins. Good. I will call you back when it is safe. In the meantime, stay vigilant. Do not trust anyone who contacts you claiming to help unless I confirm it first. The call ended, and Karen felt a brief spark of hope amid the terror. She spent the next several hours organizing all the documents she had gathered. She scanned every photocopy, every handwritten note Leonard had given her, and compiled them into a single digital file using a secure laptop that Robert had provided. Every detail, the name Project Genesis, the lab logs, and the chilling references to Ashley was now stored in a file that she would soon send to the authorities. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, and the night grew deeper. Karen could not sleep. Every minute seemed to stretch endlessly as she worked, driven by a desperate need to free her daughter from the terror that had plagued their lives for so long. The call that changed everything. Just before dawn, as Karen finally prepared to upload the file, her secure phone buzzed. The message was short. Upload confirmed. Help is on the way. Stay safe. Relief flooded through her, tempered by the awareness that her life was now forever changed. She had taken a risk that could either bring down the dark network behind New Dawn Medical or make her their next target. Karen immediately sent a brief message back. I understand. I will remain hidden. Please let me know when I can move. Then she powered down the laptop and settled into a corner of the cabin, her eyes ever alert for any sign of danger. Her thoughts wandered back to Ashley. Even though she was safe at home for now, Karen knew that the threat would not vanish so easily. New Dawn Medical, or the network behind it, would not allow their secrets to be exposed without a fight. And if they were watching, then the peaceful moments they had shared might be the last before chaos descended again. A sudden intrusion. At approximately 4 a.m., a loud crash shattered the fragile stillness of the night. Karen's heart leaped into her throat. She leapt from the floor, grabbing the small handgun that Robert had discreetly left in a drawer. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, or to fight, but she knew she had to stay calm. She crept to the window and peered out into the darkness. Through the frosted glass, she could just make out a shadow moving along the edge of the property. The sound of heavy footsteps crunching on gravel reached her ears. Her hand shook as she dialed the secure number once more, whispering, Agent Collins, I have a possible intrusion at the safe house. Stay where you are, Ms. Davis. Lock all doors and windows. I will send a team immediately, came the reply, calm but urgent. Karen hurriedly bolted the door and checked every window, her pulse pounding in her ears. She settled into a crouched position near the back door, her eyes darting back and forth in the dim light. Minutes passed like hours as she listened to the intruder's footsteps. Then, suddenly, there was silence. Just when she thought it might be over, a quiet knock echoed at the front door. Karen's heart pounded as she crept back to the hallway and cautiously approached the door. With trembling fingers, she peered through the peephole. On the other side stood a man in a dark hoodie. His face was obscured by shadows, but his eyes shone with a familiar intensity. Karen's mind raced. Was this another enemy, or someone who could help? She opened the door just a crack. Who is it? She demanded, voice firm despite her fear. The man lowered his hood slightly. My name is Daniel. I'm a friend of Agent Collins. I was sent to protect you. His tone was calm and measured, and his eyes searched hers for any sign of deception. Relief mixed with caution in Karen's chest. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. Daniel entered silently, carrying a small duffel bag. "I've been watching the perimeter. They seem to be testing our defenses. I suggest you stay hidden in the back room until my team arrives." Karen nodded quickly. "Thank you. Please help me keep this safe. I've uploaded everything to the secure link." Daniel's expression softened. "You did the right thing. Just be ready, this is only the beginning." With that, he moved to secure the door behind him. For hours afterward, Karen sat in the back room with the door locked, the soft hum of voices from outside hinting at an ongoing standoff. Every so often, Daniel would return with quiet updates. "The team is on their way," or "I've neutralized the intruder at the front." Karen's relief was tempered by the stark realization that the enemy was not giving up easily. A glimmer of hope amid chaos. At sunrise, the tension began to ease as distant sirens could be heard approaching. Daniel returned once more, this time with a reassuring smile. "The authorities are here. You're safe now." Karen's hands trembled as she thanked him, her eyes welling with tears. The nightmare of the night had been intense, but now it seemed that help was finally at hand. In the days that followed, Karen received updates from Agent Collins. The secure file she had uploaded had reached the proper channels, and investigations were launched. Marcus, the journalist, published a series of articles exposing the dark underbelly of New Dawn Medical. Public outcry began to swell, and whispers of government inquiries turned into official statements. Slowly, the secret network behind the experiments began to crumble. Karen was placed under protective custody by the state, and a safe relocation plan was arranged for Ashley and the twins. Though it pained her deeply to leave the home where so many memories were made, Karen knew that safety was paramount. With heavy hearts, she gathered a few belongings and prepared to leave. Before they departed, Karen sat with Ashley one last time in their living room. "I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this," she whispered, holding her daughter close. "But we are going to start over. I promise you a life without fear." Ashley, her eyes still haunted but determined, nodded. "I want to be normal again, Mom. I want to laugh and play without worrying that someone is watching us." Karen's heart ached at the innocence of the wish, but she vowed to make it come true. A new chapter begins. With the protection of the state and the support of investigative journalists, Karen and Ashley were moved to a secure facility in a quiet part of the country, a place where no one knew their past. The relocation was swift and discreet. In their new home, a modest house on a quiet street, Karen began the difficult process of healing. The memories of New Dawn Medical, of the experiments, and of the fear that had once ruled their lives were not easily forgotten, but with time, each day brought a small measure of hope. Karen spent many long hours reviewing the documents, determined to understand every detail. She reached out to former employees like Leonard and kept in touch with Marcus, who continued to dig deeper into the network's funding and operations. The more she learned, the more she realized that the nightmare had been part of a larger, sinister plan. New Dawn Medical was just one branch of a sprawling organization that sought to control the future by manipulating life itself. In meetings with government agents and investigators, Karen recounted every detail of Ashley's account. She described the cold, clinical notes, the whispered assurances from the technicians, and the chilling phrase, "You are special." Each time, her voice shook with both anger and sorrow. The investigation gradually uncovered evidence of illegal experiments, hidden laboratories, and financial records that pointed to powerful investors. Public officials promised that those responsible would be brought to justice, but Karen knew that the wounds ran deep. Meanwhile, Ashley struggled to adjust to life in the new home. There were therapy sessions arranged for her, and she met other children who had suffered unimaginable traumas. With gentle guidance from counselors, she began to speak about her experiences, slowly piecing together memories of dark rooms, strange machines, and the feeling of being watched. The twins, too, received careful care and nurturance, their fragile lives a testament to both cruelty and resilience. One sunny afternoon, as Karen watched Ashley play in the small garden of their new home, she felt a spark of hope. The garden was filled with bright marigolds and sturdy sunflowers, symbols of life and renewal. Karen knelt beside her daughter and said, "I want you to know, Ashley, that no matter what happened, you are loved. You are safe now, and we will build a life where you can grow, laugh, and be free." Ashley looked up at her mother, her blue eyes clear and determined. "I promise I'll be brave, Mom," she said softly. In the months that followed, Karen and Ashley began to rebuild. The state arranged for regular check-ins, and Karen found solace in writing a diary of their experiences that helped her process the trauma and document every step toward healing. At night, when the memories threatened to overwhelm her, she would hold Ashley close and remind her, "We survived the storm, and now we will find our new dawn." Marcus S. articles had ignited a fire in the public. Investigations led to arrests of several key figures associated with New Dawn Medical. The once untouchable organization was exposed, and its secrets became public. Karen S.'s case was cited as an example of the many hidden injustices that had been allowed to fester in the shadows of society. Slowly, change began to take root, a promise that no child would ever again be subjected to such cruelty in the name of progress. One crisp autumn day, as the leaves turned brilliant shades of red and gold, Karen received a phone call from Agent Collins. "Miss Davis, I have good news. Our investigation has led to the shutdown of the main laboratory behind New Dawn Medical. The people responsible are being prosecuted, and the assets have been seized." Karen S.'s eyes filled with tears of relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for everything. I only wanted my daughter to be safe." Agent Collins' voice was gentle. "You did the right thing, Ms. Davis. Your courage and determination have saved not only Ashley but many others. We will continue to protect you, but now it's time for you to start a new chapter. A chance at normalcy." As the legal proceedings unfolded, Karen and Ashley were allowed to slowly return to a semblance of normal life. They began attending community events, and Ashley even started a small art club at school to express her feelings through drawing and painting. In her art, she often depicted bright fields, protective trees, and a rising sun, a silent tribute to the new dawn that had finally come. Karen worked tirelessly to support her daughter as healing. She joined support groups for parents who had suffered similar losses, and each meeting helped her realize that while the scars of the past might never fully disappear, they could serve as a reminder of the strength that comes from overcoming adversity. She wrote letters to those affected by New Dawn Medical's experiments, urging them to seek justice and reminding them that hope can be found even in the darkest of times. Slowly, the legal case brought forth more evidence. Leonard Price testified, and the documents that Karen had gathered were presented in court. The trial was long and grueling, but eventually justice was served. Several executives and scientists were convicted of crimes against humanity, and the organization was permanently disbanded. For Karen, the verdict was bittersweet. It brought closure and a measure of relief, but it could never bring back the lost years or the pain that Ashley had endured. One day, as Karen and Ashley walked together in a small park near their new home, Ashley looked up at her mother and said, "Mom, do you think I'll ever forget what happened?" Karen stopped walking and knelt down to meet her daughter's gaze. "I don't think anyone ever forgets something so hard, sweetheart. But what matters is that we learn from it. We can choose to let it make us strong, to protect others, and to find beauty even in the midst of pain. And I promise you, we will find our happiness again." Ashley nodded slowly, a tentative smile appearing on her lips. In that moment, surrounded by the sound of children laughing and birds singing, there was a glimmer of possibility, a future that, while scarred, was filled with hope. Moving forward together. Over the next several months, life began to settle into a gentle rhythm. Karen started volunteering at a local shelter for families affected by similar tragedies, using her experience to help others find a path to healing. Ashley, though still quiet at times, blossomed in her new school, making friends and sharing her artwork that expressed both her pain and her hope. The twins, delicate and innocent, were cared for by a loving nanny who treated them like her own children. Karen never forgot the dark days of New Dawn Medical, but she no longer allowed that darkness to define her life. Instead, she turned her energy toward building a safe, nurturing environment for her daughter and grandchildren. Every day was a struggle, but it was also a victory, a testament to the strength of a mother's love and a family's resilience. One cool winter evening, as the first snowflakes began to fall, Karen hosted a small gathering at her home. It was a modest celebration, a simple dinner with a few friends from the support group, some neighbors, and even Marcus, who had followed the case closely. Over warm soup and homemade bread, they shared stories of survival, loss, and hope. For a brief moment, laughter filled the room, and the ghosts of the past seemed to recede. In a quiet corner of the living room, Marcus approached Karen. "You did something remarkable, Karen. You stood up when everyone else was silent, and now you're helping others stand up too." Karen smiled softly. "I was just trying to keep my daughter safe. But if my story can help even one person, then it's worth it." Marcus nodded. "The fight isn't over, but this is a new beginning. Your courage has inspired many." That night, as Karen tucked Ashley into bed once more, she whispered, "Tomorrow is a new day. We have the chance to live without fear, to build a life full of love and hope. I promise, Ashley, we will have our new dawn." Ashley, her eyes heavy with sleep yet filled with determination, replied, "I believe you, Mom." A future reclaimed. In the years that followed, the scars of the past slowly began to heal. Karen continued to be a fierce advocate for justice, speaking at community meetings and working with organizations dedicated to protecting vulnerable children. Ashley grew into a thoughtful, creative young woman who used her art to express the complexities of her experiences. The twins, now healthy and growing, became a symbol of the life that had been stolen and the hope that had been reborn. Karen often reflected on the long, painful journey that had brought them to this point. There were still moments of sadness, memories of dark days, and whispered fears, but there was also joy in the small victories. The sound of laughter in the kitchen, the sight of a bright sunrise over the trees, the warmth of a hug from someone who truly cared. One bright spring day, as the neighborhood buzzed with the energy of renewal, Karen visited a local park with Ashley and the twins. Under the budding trees, they sat on a bench, sharing a simple picnic. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh blossoms, and for a while, the world felt peaceful and safe. Ashley turned to her mother. "Mom, do you think that one day we'll really forget the past?" she asked, her voice soft. Karen took a deep breath and smiled. "We may never forget entirely, Ashley. Our memories will always be a part of us. But we can choose not to let them control our future. We can remember our struggles, learn from them, and move forward with hope." Ashley nodded thoughtfully, her gaze drifting to the horizon where the sun shone brightly. "I want to live a normal life now," she said, her voice steadier. "I want to laugh and play and dream without fear." Karen reached out and took her daughter's hand. "We will, sweetheart. Every day is a step closer to a life where we are free to be ourselves. And no matter what happens, I'll always be here to protect you." The final steps toward freedom. As time passed, the public scandal surrounding New Dawn Medical continued to make headlines. Investigations led to more arrests, and the remnants of the secret network were dismantled piece by piece. Karen's story became a rallying cry for justice, and her brave fight inspired others to speak out against abuses in the name of science and progress. Karen often recalled the long nights when fear had ruled every moment, the time spent huddled in the dark safe house, the terror of intruders at the door, and the endless uncertainty about the future. But now, with each passing day, those memories were slowly being replaced by hope, resilience, and the promise of a better tomorrow. One evening, after a community event honoring survivors and advocates, Karen stood on the porch of her new home, looking out at the peaceful street. The sky was clear, and the gentle hum of life filled the air. In that quiet moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had fought so hard for her daughter, for the twins, and for every child who had suffered in silence. And while the pain of the past would always be a part of her, it no longer defined her. Karen's phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Your story has changed lives. Never forget, you are not alone." A tear slid down her cheek as she smiled, knowing that even in the darkest times, light had found a way to break through. A new dawn. In the end, Karen Davis and Ashley discovered that while the past could never be erased, they could forge a future defined by love, hope, and the courage to fight for what is right. They began to rebuild their lives not as victims of a cruel experiment, but as survivors and champions of a new beginning. Every day brought challenges, but with each sunrise, they were reminded that a new dawn had finally come. Walking together hand in hand in the park, laughing over shared memories and dreams for the future, Karen and Ashley embraced the beauty of ordinary moments. The wounds of the past had not disappeared, but they had become a part of their strength. In their eyes, the promise of a bright future shone clearly, a future where fear no longer dictated their lives, and where every smile was a victory over darkness. As the years went by, Ashley blossomed into a confident young woman. She pursued her passion for art, often drawing inspiration from the landscapes of hope that had carried her through the worst days of her life. Karen, too, found solace in advocacy and community work, determined to ensure that no other child would suffer as hers had. Their journey was long and difficult, but each step was a testament to the unyielding power of love and the human spirit. On a warm summer evening, as the sun dipped low over a peaceful suburban street, Ashley organized an art exhibit at a local community center. The exhibit was titled New Dawn and featured paintings, sketches, and mixed media works created by survivors and children from around the area. Karen walked through the gallery, her heart swelling with pride as she saw vibrant colors and hopeful images adorning the walls. Each piece told a story of resilience, a story that began in darkness and, through determination and courage, emerged into the light. Standing beside her, Ashley said, "Mom, I want everyone to know that even after everything, there is beauty in the struggle. I want our story to show that hope can come from the most unexpected places." Karen embraced her daughter. "Your art, your words, they remind us all that we can rise above our past. You are a beacon of hope, Ashley." In that moment, surrounded by the art and the gentle hum of conversation, Karen knew that they had indeed found their new dawn, a life where the past served as a reminder of their strength, not as a chain to hold them back. Epilogue. the promise of tomorrow. Years later, as Karen watched Ashley graduate from high school with honors, she reflected on the long, painful journey that had brought them to this point. The memories of New Dawn Medical and the terror they had endured were still there, hidden beneath layers of healing and hope. But they were no longer a source of paralyzing fear. They were a reminder of the power of a mother's love and a daughter's resilience. During the graduation ceremony, as Ashley walked across the stage to receive her diploma, Karen's eyes filled with tears of both sorrow and pride. In her heart, she whispered a silent promise: "I will always protect you, and together, we will continue to build a life filled with hope and happiness." That day marked not just the end of one chapter, but the beginning of another, a future where they would live without looking over their shoulders, where every new sunrise would bring the promise of a better tomorrow. In the quiet moments after the ceremony, Ashley took her mother's hand and said, "Mom, thank you for never giving up on me. I know it wasn't easy, but you made me strong." Karen smiled through her tears. "You are strong, Ashley, and I will always be here for you. No matter what happens, we will always have our new dawn." The story of Karen and Ashley is one of pain and loss, but more importantly, it is a story of courage, love, and the determination to reclaim one's life even when darkness seems all around. It is a reminder that even in the face of unspeakable horror, the human spirit can rise, rebuild, and shine as brightly as the morning sun. Two twins, born perfectly normal and abandoned by their parents in front of Blackwood Manor, set the stage for a dark legacy. 19 years later, many events come to us that will surprise us. So what awaits these two poor girls? Listen to the whole story with me to discover this fascinating journey. Before we start this journey, please share where you are watching in the comments. Blackwood Manor stands tall in the cold New York night, its tall windows glowing under a pale moon. Inside, the air is filled with the scent of luxury, fresh orchids, high-end perfumes, and old wines. However, in one of the mansion's grandest halls, a different smell dominates. The sterile scent of hospital-grade disinfectant mixed with the sweat of childbirth. Helena Blackwood, a woman of striking beauty and relentless vanity, lay exhausted on silk sheets, her golden curls damp with perspiration. Nearby, Victor Blackwood, a tall man with a chiseled jaw and an expression as cold as ice, stood with his arms crossed. His tailored suit remained crisp, as if untouched by the night's chaos. The doctor, wiping his brow, announced while cradling two newborn girls, "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, you have twin daughters." But instead of joy, silence filled the room. Helena lifted her head slightly, her heart pounding. Victor stepped forward, his eyes, scanning the infants, twisted into something unreadable. The doctor hesitated before lowering the swaddled babies into Helena's trembling arms. Eager to see the perfect children, she had envisioned miniature versions of herself and Victor. Blessed with striking beauty and refined features, Helena pulled back the blankets. Yet her breath caught as she beheld their uneven features. One baby bore a birthmark stretching from her left eye to her cheek, while the other had unusually large, intense eyes that seemed disproportionate to her tiny face. Their skin was subtly wrinkled, giving them an odd appearance. Helena's chest tightened. This could not be real. Her daughters were meant to be perfect, beautiful heirs to their fortune. When she turned to Victor, his face was already contorted with disgust. "They are hideous," he said in a low, sharp tone that cut through the heavy air. Helena swallowed hard as nausea overwhelmed her. The doctor cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the situation. "Newborns often change in appearance as they grow," he offered. But Victor interrupted with a glare, "Take them away." Helena's lips trembled. Looking down at the girls in her arms, their tiny fingers instinctively curling for warmth, she felt a deep, unfamiliar surge of emotion, fear, confusion, perhaps even guilt. Then Victor's voice rang out again, colder still. If the press finds out about this, his meaning was clear. Helena turned away, biting her lip. She had built her life on perfection, wealth, reputation, and a place among New York's elite. When she reopened her eyes, her heart had grown hard. "We can't keep them," she whispered. 2 months later, in the dead of winter, the Blackwoods prepared for their final act of cruelty. A sleek black car rolled through empty streets, its headlights slicing through the mist. Inside, Helena sat stiffly wrapped in a fur coat, cradling the sleeping infants, while Victor gripped the steering wheel with cold determination. They stopped before a towering mansion at the city's edge, a property belonging to the reclusive Beatrice Sterling, whose wealth was the subject of hushed conversations at high society events. Victor checked his watch. It was just past 3 a.m., and Helena took a deep breath before opening the car door. Stepping onto the icy pavement, her heels clicking on the stone, she hesitated as one of the infants stirred in its blanket. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away, bent down, and placed the babies gently at the estate's foot. Without another glance, she hurried back to the car, and Victor drove off in silence. At sunrise, Beatrice Sterling stood at her grand doorway, sipping her morning tea as the sharp winter air nipped at her skin. Then, a faint, muffled sound, a cry, caught her attention. Her heart clenched. Though not easily shaken, something about the fragile whimper stirred a deep empathy within her. With measured steps, her silk robe brushing the stone stairs, she looked down to find 2 tiny bundles abandoned on the cold ground. Her breath hitched, and she knelt slowly, peeling back the blankets. 2 pairs of desperate eyes met hers. Her fingers trembled as she touched their cold skin. "Who would do such a thing?" she murmured, memories of a long-buried past flickering through her mind. After a long exhale, with quiet resolve, she scooped the babies into her arms. "Come, little ones," she murmured, "you are safe now." And with that, Beatrice Sterling closed the doors to her mansion, unaware that she had just opened the door to a future that would shake the world. The Sterling mansion, though just as grand as Blackwood Manor, carried an air of mystery, a place where secrets hid behind velvet curtains and chandeliers sparkled with untold stories. For Ivy and Aria, the twins, it became the only home they would ever know. Beatrice Sterling was a woman of quiet strength who had never had children of her own, nor sought companionship. The world whispered about her lost love and the wealth she guarded like a fortress. Yet when she found the abandoned twins at her doorstep, something long thought dead stirred within her. Without asking questions or searching for their parents, she claimed them as her own. Years passed, and the twins grew under Beatrice's watchful eye. Childhood, however, was not kind to them. Ivy, the elder by mere minutes, was the stronger of the two, her sharp, inquisitive eyes always seeking answers and challenging the world. Aria, on the other hand, was softer, her voice a quiet whisper behind Ivy's bold declarations. Their hands often reached out to comfort each other when the world proved too cruel. Even within the mansion's walls, the hushed voices of the staff maids, gardeners, and butlers whispered cruel remarks. "Poor Miss Sterling deserves real children, not these," they said. "They say the rich go mad in loneliness. Perhaps that is why she keeps them." Each cruel word tightened Beatrice's thin lips, but she had no patience for the weak-minded, and even less for cruelty. One afternoon, while Ivy and Aria played in the rose garden, carefully plucking petals and collecting them in a tin bucket, their laughter was a rare oasis amid the desert of loneliness. Then, a group of neighborhood children appeared at the gates, peering in through the iron bars. "There they are," sneered one boy. The ugly twins, jeered another girl, giggling as she added, "My mom says they were thrown away like trash." Ivy's grip on the tin bucket tightened, while Arya shrank behind her. "Go away," Ivy said steadily. One boy tossed a small rock near Ivy's feet. "What? Are you going to scare us with your monster faces?" The children laughed, their voices sharp like broken glass. Arya whimpered, but Ivy did not flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, fists clenched. "Come closer and say that again," she challenged. For a moment, the children hesitated before a new voice cut through the tension like thunder. Beatrice Sterling appeared on the steps, her silhouette framed by the fading sun. Though she raised no harsh words, her quiet command sent the children scrambling away, their bravado melting under her cold stare. Turning to the twins, Beatrice knelt before them. "You must never bow to the words of weak people," she said softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from Arya's face. "They fear what they do not understand. You are not monsters, you are warriors." Ivy's small hand still trembled even as she fought to hide her fear. "They called us monsters," she murmured. Beatrice gently cupped Ivy's chin, forcing her to meet her eyes. "You are not monsters, you are warriors," she repeated. "Come, I will teach you how to make the world kneel before you." Beatrice Sterling was not a mother in the traditional sense. She did not cradle them when they cried or sing lullabies at night. Instead, she armed them with knowledge. The grand library of the mansion became their sanctuary. By the time they were 10, Ivy and Arya were reading books meant for university students' studies in business, chemistry, history. Beatrice taught them the art of negotiation, the strength in silence, and the power of perception. "When people see weakness, they exploit it," she told them. "You must never show anything but strength." Arya absorbed the lessons with quiet fascination, but it was Ivy who devoured them, her mind sharp and her hunger for knowledge insatiable. Yet no matter how much they learned, the world still saw them as nothing more than two abandoned girls with unfortunate faces. On their 12th birthday, the twins made a request. "We want to go into the city," declared Ivy, her voice clear. Beatrice studied them carefully. "Why?" Arya hesitated, but Ivy lifted her chin. "We want to see if the world has changed." Beatrice sighed. She understood what they sought, a test of their newfound strength. Against her better judgment, she took them to a grand shopping district, an elite world where beauty and wealth were worshipped like deities. They strolled through marble-floored boutiques, their modest yet expensive dresses setting them apart from the average shopper. Still, despite the price of their clothing, the stares persisted. Women whispered behind gloved hands, and men averted their eyes. At one boutique, a well-dressed woman turned to her companion, speaking softly, "They must be adopted. That woman would never have birthed children so unfortunate." Arya shrank further, while Ivy clenched her fists. "Leave us alone," Ivy said coolly. One of the boys nearby tossed a rock, and just then, a tall boy with dark hair and an easy smirk stepped forward. "Who are you?" Ivy asked. "I'm Oliver Calloway," he replied with a grin. "I think I just found the most interesting people in this school." Unlike the others, Oliver did not flinch at their looks or lower his voice. Most importantly, he never pitted them. "I like power," he admitted one afternoon while leaning against a locker, "and you just don't know how to use it yet." Ivy narrowed her eyes. "And you want to teach us?" Oliver chuckled. "Not exactly, I want to watch you learn." Arya, hesitant yet intrigued, whispered, "Do you trust him?" Ivy smirked. "That doesn't mean we can't use him." And so, an unlikely alliance formed. With Oliver by their side, Ivy and Arya navigated Hamilton Academy as ruthless hierarchy, learning who to befriend, who to ignore, and, most importantly, who to destroy. By the end of the semester, whispers about their exploits had grown. Did you hear what Ivy did in debate club? And Arya's chemistry project was so advanced the teacher couldn't even understand it. They were no longer invisible, yet despite their brilliance and power, the world continued to scorn their looks. One evening, as winter crept in, Arya sat alone in the library, flipping through an old magazine featuring a model with flawless skin, symmetrical features, and an effortless smile. Arya touched her own face and whispered, "I wish I were beautiful." A heavy silence followed. Ivy, who had just entered the room, froze. She hated that wish. Rushing over, Ivy snatched the magazine away. "Don't say that," she said sharply. "Beauty is overrated. We have intelligence, we have power." Arya sighed. "But would it be so wrong to have both?" Ivy's fists clenched. She had spent her whole life convincing herself that beauty was nothing, though deep inside, she feared the truth the world would always favor the beautiful, and no matter how powerful they became, some doors would remain closed. That night, as a storm raged outside Sterling Mansion, the twins sat by a roaring fireplace, their minds haunted by the day's events. "They hate us because they can't accept us," Arya whispered. Ivy stared into the flames. "Because they see what we are," she replied. Arya looked to her sister. "Then how do we make them stop?" Ivy met Arya's eyes. "We make them need us. We find something they care about more than beauty." Outside, the firelight cast shifting shadows on the walls, and Beatrice Sterling watched from a doorway. For the first time, she truly believed the girls would not only survive, but conquer the world. Soon, Beatrice made an unexpected announcement. "I have enrolled you in Hamilton Academy." Arya's fork clattered on her plate. "School?" she repeated as if the word were foreign. Beatrice met their eyes evenly. "You have hidden away long enough. You are brilliant beyond your years, but brilliance locked away is useless. It is time you faced the world on your own terms." A heavy silence filled the room. Arya hesitated, but what if they are cruel? Beatrice's expression remained unreadable. "Then you will learn how strong you truly are." Ivy exhaled sharply. "Fine." The twins' first day at Hamilton Academy was everything they had expected and worse. The elite private school was filled with the offspring of New York's wealthiest families. Their blonde hair shone under sparkling chandeliers, their uniforms immaculately pressed, their laughter echoing like a chorus of exclusivity. Then came Ivy and Arya. The moment they stepped in, whispers erupted. "Are they really related to the Sterlings? They can't be. Look at their faces." Some students turned away, pretending not to stare. Others smirked with razor-sharp disdain. At lunchtime, as the twins carried their trays through the cafeteria, every glance was filled with scorn. Suddenly, a girl with golden curls sneered from across the room. "Looks like they let in the charity cases this year." A round of laughter burst forth. Ivy did not even blink. She strode over to the girl's table, set her tray down, and leaned in. "If you're so concerned about charity cases, perhaps you should examine your father's failing stock portfolio," she said calmly. The table fell silent as the girl's face flushed red. Before any further retort, a tall, dark-haired boy with an easy smirk intervened. "Who are you?" Ivy asked. "I'm Oliver Calloway," he repeated, grinning. "And I think I just found the most interesting people in this school." His words were simple, yet they held a promise of power. In the weeks that followed, Ivy and Arya, once dismissed as mere misfits, began to rise. Their achievements in debate, chemistry, and business strategy became the talk of Hamilton Academy. Yet, no matter how much they excelled, the world continued to label them as nothing more than two abandoned girls with unfortunate faces. On their 12th birthday, they boldly declared, We want to see the city." Despite their trepidation, Beatrice agreed, taking them into an elite shopping district. There, behind marble floors and glittering boutique displays, spiteful whispers followed. "They must be adopted," a well-dressed woman murmured, "for no mother would have birthed such misfits." Ivy and Arya exchanged determined glances. As they walked on, Beatrice's voice echoed in their minds. "People want to give you a seat at the table, you must take it." That very night, in a storm-battered mansion, Ivy and Arya sat by the fireplace, discussing the day as humiliation. "We are not defined by their looks," Ivy declared. "We are defined by what we can create." Arya, though trembling, nodded. "We need to change the rules," Ivy said, her eyes hardening with resolve. "Beauty may have been our curse, but power, real power, is ours to claim." And so, with Beatrice's guidance, the twins began to arm themselves with knowledge, determination, and a plan to reshape an industry that had always favored the beautiful. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly when, on their 17th birthday, Ivy announced, "We need a laboratory." Arya blinked in disbelief. "A lab? We don't have one." Ivy's lips curled into a determined smile. "Then we'll build one." In an unused room of Sterling Mansion, once a wine cellar, the space was transformed into a makeshift laboratory filled with glass beakers, chemical compounds, and pages of handwritten formulas. It was the first step toward building their own empire. But early experiments were fraught with failure. One evening, after weeks of research, Arya created a serum intended to improve skin texture permanently. Excited, Ivy insisted on testing it first. The moment the liquid touched her skin, she felt an agonizing burn, and red welt spread across her cheek. "I don't understand. The formula was perfect," Ivy hissed through gritted teeth. Arya, panicked, tried to soothe her. "We'll fix this, Ivy. We fail fast until we learn." The next day, they began again, and after months of adjustments, Arya finally developed a moisturizing serum that restructured skin on a cellular level. Ivy was the first to test it once more, and this time there was only a slow cooling sensation and a subtle glow, a beginning, not perfection, but a promise of what was to come. Beatrice examined Ivy's transformed skin under the dim laboratory light. "This is it," she murmured. "This is where it starts." For the first time in their lives, Ivy and Arya had created something the world would want. Yet Ivy knew that the world would not simply accept their work. They had to force it into the market. Using Beatrice's old business connections, she arranged a private showcase at an elite industry event filled with investors, influencers, and beauty moguls who controlled the market. The problem was, they had no company, no reputation, only the bitter legacy of the Blackwood name. Arya hesitated. "Do you really think they'll listen to us?" Ivy's smirk was razor sharp. "They don't have to listen, they just have to see." And so, with that, they took their first step into war. The showcase was held in the grand ballroom of the Aurora Hotel, where crystal chandeliers reflected off polished marble floors. There, among the city's most influential figures, Ivy and Arya stood at the entrance. They did not belong yet, not after tonight. Beatrice's words echoed in Ivy's mind. "People want to give you a seat, you must take it." The event was a private investor showcase, intended for established beauty brands to present new innovations. Using Beatrice's help, Ivy forged an invitation under the name Sterling Labs, a company that, in truth, did not yet exist. Arya fidgeted with a small glass vial in her hand, containing their first real product, a serum unlike anything the market had seen. "We shouldn't be here," Arya whispered. "They'll discover who we are." Ivy's sharp glance silenced her. "They want tea, and even if they do, it won't matter." Among the gathered elites was Veronica Kingsley, the undisputed queen of luxury cosmetics. Ivy's gaze locked on her. "They're our target," Ivy said softly. Arya's eyes widened. "Are you insane? She doesn't even know us." Ivy smiled confidently. "She will." Without hesitation, Ivy stepped forward and interrupted Veronica's conversation with two investors. "Miss Kingsley, I believe we have something you will want to see." Veronica's brows lifted as she assessed the bold pair. "You believe?" she replied smoothly. The investors nearby exchanged amused glances, but Ivy pressed on. "In about 5 minutes you will." Veronica's curiosity was piqued. "Prove it," she said, uncapping the vial and applying a small drop to the back of her hand. In moments, the fine lines vanished, and her skin took on a soft radiance as if treated with an expensive procedure. The investors fell silent, and Veronica's voice softened to a near whisper. "What is this?" Ivy smiled confidently. "This is not just another serum, it is a revolution." Veronica arched a brow. "I'd never heard of Sterling Labs." One investor scoffed. "Every young entrepreneur thinks they have reinvented the wheel. What makes you any different?" Ivy met his gaze steadily. "Because in 10 years, you will be begging to invest in us." A hush fell over the group. Even Veronica looked slightly amused. "Prove it," she repeated. Just then, a cold voice cut through the moment. "Well, this is unexpected." Every muscle in Ivy's body stiffened. Slowly, she turned to see a figure standing a few feet away, a champagne flute in hand. Helena Blackwood, looking as pristine as ever, her blonde waves immaculate and her emerald dress hugging her figure like a magazine cover, smiled but not warmly. My, she said slowly, taking a measured sip. "I never imagined I'd see you here. But then again, I suppose I should have expected it." The room fell silent. Arya's breath quickened, and her hands trembled, but Ivy remained unfazed. "Surprised to see you, Mother?" Ivy said coolly. "I didn't think this was your scene," she added. "After all, we are among self-made women now." A flicker of irritation passed over Helena's face. "Oh, darling," she sighed, setting down her glass, "you're not self-made, you're merely playing dress-up in a world you do not belong to." Her words stung, for no matter how powerful Ivy had become, the cruel, beautiful woman who was their mother still saw them as nothing. Veronica Kingsley, ever the businesswoman, interjected with a measured tone, "These are your daughters?" Her voice was curious yet composed. Helena's smile widened. "Yes," she replied, though Ivy's nails dug into her palm. "No more," Helena added softly, lowering her voice. "Let me make this simple. Whatever little game you're playing, it won't last. You think you've found a way into this world, but you are not one of us." Ivy's heart pounded. For the first time in years, she felt small. But then she looked at Arya, who stared at their mother, as if seeing a ghost, and Ivy straightened her voice. "We are not trying to be you, Mother. We are going to be something bigger." Helena's smile faltered for a fleeting second, and in that moment, Ivy knew she had won this round. Yet the war was far from over, for now Helena and Victor Blackwood knew they existed, and that was more dangerous than anything else. The ride back to Sterling Mansion was silent. City lights blurred past the tinted windows, a kaleidoscope of neon and shadow. Arya sat rigidly, her fingers digging into her dress fabric, while Ivy stared out the window, lost in swirling thoughts. "They have found us," Ivy murmured. "And now Mother has made it clear she won't ignore us." Beatrice, seated across from them, finally broke the silence. "I won't let this go." Ivy turned to her. "I know," she said, noticing the soft drumming of Beatrice's fingers on her knee. "For years, you pretended we didn't exist, and in one night, you forced her to acknowledge us in front of the most powerful people in the industry." Arya's eyes widened. They looked at us as if we were nothing, she whispered. Ivy clenched her fists. Then we will make sure she never dares to look at us like that again. Beatrice's lips curled into something between amusement and approval. You must prepare, she warned, because I guarantee Helena Blackwood is already planning your downfall. Later that evening, Helena sat in her penthouse swirling the last sip of champagne in a crystal glass. Victor, reading the financial news, remained unbothered by the evening's events. She is dangerous, Helena said quietly. Victor replied, Who is your daughter? Helena spat, Amelia, no. She is not a child anymore, she is a threat. Victor smirked, They're just girls playing at business. Let them tire themselves out. Helena's fingers tightened around her glass. No, she said in a low voice. You don't understand, they're not only trying to build a company. They are trying to rewrite the rules of this industry. Victor sighed. We have Kingsley Beauty, Dawson Cosmetics companies that have been untouchable for decades. No one will invest in some no-name laboratory. Helena's grip loosened, and a slow, dangerous smile curled on her lips. Then let us make sure of that. Victor raised an eyebrow. And how do you propose we do that? Helena leaned back, eyes gleaming darkly. We destroy them before they even start. 3 days later, Sterling Mansion received an unexpected visitor. Ivy sat in the study reviewing financial projections for their newly formed company, while Arya pored over research on her leather-bound notebook. Suddenly, the front door slammed open. Beatrice appeared, her usual composure cracked by a near rage. Come downstairs, she commanded in an icy voice. In the foyer, a woman in an expensive navy suit stood Helena's lawyer. Without pleasantries, she extended a thick envelope. This is a cease and desist order, she said coolly. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood have trademarked the name Sterling under their corporate holdings. You cannot operate under it. Arya's breath hitched. So they're trying to erase us again, Ivy mused with a humorless laugh. The lawyer's lips pressed into a thin line. Miss Sterling, take this seriously. Then, Beatrice stepped forward, her voice cold and precise. Tell Helena that she underestimates you. You can take the name, but you cannot take what you built. And when you rise, she will regret this move. After a split-second hesitation, the lawyer turned on her heel. You have 1 week to comply, she stated, then left. In that moment, Arya collapsed into a chair, hands trembling. They took our name, she whispered. Ivy crossed her arms. No, they took a word, not our identity. Beatrice watched them carefully. This is only the beginning. Helena will not stop here, I know that. Ivy's eyes glinted with determination. Then we will make sure she never dares to look at us like that again. Beatrice's slow, dangerous smirk confirmed it. They were finally being noticed. For the first time in months, Sterling Mansion was quiet, no attacks, no scandals, no sabotage. And that silence frightened Arya the most. Sitting at the kitchen table stirring her tea absent-mindedly, she asked, Why do I feel like we should be celebrating, yet we're not? Ivy, scrolling through reports on her phone, replied, We're not stupid. Arya set her cup down. Then what do we do now? Ivy exhaled slowly and said, We expand. We won't just survive, we will grow. Next time, we won't just fight back, we will ensure he never gets back up. 3 days later, Ivy and Arya sat across from Veronica Kingsley in her lavish penthouse. The older woman sipped her espresso with icy blue eyes. So, you survived your father's little game, Veronica said. Ivy smirked. Did you bet against us? Veronica chuckled. I never bet against people who have nothing to lose. Arya interjected, We need to talk expansion. Veronica raised an eyebrow. Ambitious, aren't you? Ivy folded her arms. We need stronger distribution, bigger markets. We're good, but not untouchable yet. Veronica studied them before leaning forward. Fine, she said, but I have one condition. Ivy lifted her chin. Name it. Veronica smiled sharply. I want 20% of vivid glow. Arya's breath caught. That's too much. Ivy's jaw tensed. Veronica shrugged. You need power, I have it. If I'm risking my reputation to help grow your empire, I expect my share. A heavy silence followed as Arya gently urged, It might be what we need. Ivy clenched her fists and countered 10%. Veronica smirked. 15%? Ivy's lips pressed together. 12% final offer. Veronica studied her, then slowly nodded. Deal? And just like that, vivid glow became unstoppable. Yet, as Ivy shook Veronica's hand, she couldn't shake the thought that they had made another deal with the devil, one where power always came at a price. In the days that followed, Veronica's influence became undeniable. Vivid glow as suppliers returned, orders skyrocketed, and investors began circling. For the first time, Ivy and Arya felt unstoppable. But then, a scandal broke. Reports emerged of dangerous ingredients in their skincare line, accusations of fraud, and customer complaints of rashes and skin reactions. Within hours, social media exploded. They aren't even trained chemists. What did you expect? This is what happens when plain girls try to sell beauty, sneered critics. Ivy and Arya stared at the news reports in horror. Arya's voice trembled. This isn't real, our formulas are flawless. Beatrice's expression remained unreadable. It doesn't matter if it's real, it only matters that people believe it. Ivy's mind raced. This is Helena's doing. Beatrice nodded. Of course it is. Arya covered her face with her hands. How do we fight this? Ivy exhaled slowly, knowing that Helena had assumed that throwing dirt on them would break their spirit. Scars only make us stronger, Ivy declared. We want to fight it. Instead, we'll use it. Taking out her phone, Ivy typed furiously. Let us give them a scandal, she murmured. Moments later, her tweet went viral. Amelia Blackwood, they tried to ruin us. They failed. Vivid glow as truth will out. Soon, customers began posting reviews, proving the allegations were false. Industry insiders whispered, have Helena and Victor Blackwood gone too far? Vivid glow not only survived the scandal, it grew stronger. Social media rallied behind them, as the public turned against Helena Blackwood. And just like that, the tide shifted. Yet, Helena knew better than to celebrate. Wounded but not defeated, she remained determined that a wounded animal was the most dangerous of all. Across town, in her lavish penthouse, Helena Blackwood scrolled through breaking news headlines. The Blackwood dynasty is in trouble. Her phone buzzed, but she ignored it. Victor, still unruffled, remarked, You have lost. Helena snapped her gaze at him. Not yet, she murmured. If I cannot destroy them directly, I know someone who can. Victor sighed. Maybe it's time to just give up. Helena's voice grew dark. They have Veronica now, and that changes everything. Victor shrugged. Then we must change them back. Helena's fingers tightened into fists. We will show them real destruction. For the first time in 20 years, fear crept into her heart. 2 weeks later, Vivid Glow arrived with Veronica's backing. Suppliers returned, investors apologized, and the chaos Helena had unleashed seemed erased. Yet Ivy knew this was no victory, it was a warning. Victor had agreed to back off for now, but when he returned, he would ensure they never walked away unscathed. At Sterling Mansion, the silence was eerie. Arya sat in the kitchen, stirring her tea absent-mindedly, while Ivy scrolled through reports on her phone. Finally, Arya whispered, "Why do I feel like we should be celebrating?" Ivy replied, "Because we're not stupid." Arya set her cup down. "So what do we do now?" Ivy exhaled. "We expand. We make it impossible for him to take us down." Arya frowned. "But what if he attacks again?" Ivy's grip tightened. "Next time, we 1T just fight back, we ensure he never gets back up." 2 days later, Ivy and Arya met Veronica Kingsley again, this time in her grand penthouse at Kingsley Tower. Veronica's icy blue eyes appraised them as she said, "I was wondering when you'd come. I assume you realize how small you still are." Ivy replied coolly, "We're not here to beg. We're here to make a deal." Veronica arched an eyebrow. "And why would I help you?" Ivy smiled. "Because if we fall, Helena wins, and we both know you despise losing to her." Veronica's smirk faded momentarily before she leaned back slowly. "Interesting," she murmured. Arya held her breath. "I will help you, but everything comes at a price," Veronica warned. "I expect something in return." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "We wouldn't be here if we weren't willing to pay." Veronica continued, "When the time is right, you will do something for me." Arya shifted uncomfortably. "What kind of something?" Veronica shrugged. "I haven't decided yet." After a pause, Ivy extended her hand. "Deal," she said. Veronica's grip was firm as she shook it. "Congratulations, ladies," she said. "You have just declared war." That night, Helena Blackwood was not accustomed to losing. When she learned that Veronica Kingsley had sided with the daughters, she shattered a crystal wine glass against a wall in fury. Victor barely lifted his gaze from his laptop. "Are you going to throw a tantrum every time they outmaneuver you?" he chided. Helena's eyes blazed. "They are children." Victor sighed. "Perhaps it is time to give up." Helena snapped, "Don't you dare suggest we back off." Victor shrugged. "They have Veronica now, that changes everything." Helena's voice dropped. "Then we must change them back." She stormed toward the bar, pouring another drink with trembling hands. For the first time in 20 years, Helena felt fear. "Fine," she murmured. "If they want to fight dirty, I will show them what real destruction looks like." 3 weeks later, with Veronica's backing, Vivid Glow's orders surged, investors circled, and the brand became unstoppable. Yet a scandal erupted. A press release appeared under their name. New hires were made by Veronica without consulting Ivy and Arya, and a product launch was rushed despite Arya's protests. Ivy's jaw tightened. It was clear, Veronica wasn't just helping them grow, she was taking control. Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower, with Arya trailing behind, and confronted Veronica in her office. "You are making decisions without us," Ivy accused. Veronica's response was measured. "I am making decisions for you, that is what partners do." Arya interjected, "No, that is what owners do." Veronica smiled slowly. "And what exactly did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's fingers curled into fists. "We did not sign over our company." Veronica leaned back and replied coolly, "No, but you signed over influence. And influence, darling, is far more powerful than ownership." Ivy's breath came slowly. Veronica tapped her nails on the desk. "Tell me, Ivy, what is it you are so afraid of?" Ivy's voice turned icy. "Losing control." Veronica chuckled. "Control is an illusion. You don't control power, you wield it." Leaning forward, she added, "If you're smart, you will stop fighting me and start learning from me." Arya frowned. "What does that mean?" Veronica's smile deepened. "I have a proposal that will make you more powerful than you ever imagined." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "And what is the price?" Veronica's gaze darkened. I want vivid glow. Arya's stomach dropped. No, Ivy said sharply. What do you want? Veronica's voice was smooth as silk. I want 51%. Arya inhaled sharply. That means control. Veronica tilted her head. Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take vivid glow to heights you can't imagine. You'll still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you. Arya stood abruptly. We're done here. Ivy did not move. Arya's voice grew urgent. We built this company from nothing. We bled for it, and you want to just take it over? Veronica's tone was cool. I haven't decided yet. Ivy hesitated only a moment before extending her hand. Deal, she said quietly. Veronica's grip was firm. Then congratulations, she said with a sly smile. You just declared war. Helena Blackwood was furious. Victor's expression turned grim as he sat in his study at Blackwood Manor, a testament to cold, calculated power. Your actions will have consequences, Victor warned, his tone low and menacing. Ivy, standing tall, replied, We are not afraid of you. As they left the Blackwood estate that night, Ivy and Arya knew they had made a dangerous enemy. Victor was not like Helena. He destroyed people quietly and efficiently, and now they were his next target. 2 days later, trouble arrived. Arya sat at the long dining table, scrolling through vivid glow's sales reports, when a single notification appeared. The bank account had been frozen pending a fraud investigation. Her stomach dropped. Ivy entered with a cup of coffee. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said. Arya turned the laptop toward her, and Ivy's expression hardened. What the hell? Beatrice entered just in time to hear. What is wrong? Ivy pushed the laptop toward her. Beatrice scanned the screen, her expression grim. This isn't a mistake, she said quietly. This is Victor. Within 24 hours, everything began to crumble. Vivid Glow's main distributor suddenly cut ties. Investors backed out citing unforeseen risks, and major advertising campaigns were pulled. It was systematic, ruthless, and precise, and Ivy knew exactly what it meant. Victor was not just hurting them, he was erasing them. Arya's hand shook as she closed the laptop. If we can't unfreeze our accounts, we can't pay our suppliers. If we can't pay our suppliers, we can't fulfill orders, and if we can't fulfill orders, we're finished. Ivy's jaw clenched. Not like this, she declared firmly. Turning to Beatrice, she added, There is always a way around power. There is always a weakness. Beatrice led them to her private study and pulled out a single black folder. Inside this folder, she explained softly, is something I have kept for 20 years, something even Victor Blackwood does not want the world to see. Ivy's eyes narrowed. What is it? Beatrice tapped the folder. His greatest secret. Arya's breath hitched as Ivy opened the folder. On the very first page was proof that Victor had built his fortune on a foundation of lies. 2 nights later, Ivy and Arya found themselves in Victor's exclusive private club. The air was thick with cigar smoke and murmurs about offshore accounts. Victor sat at the center, unbothered until he saw them. His smirk returned briefly until Ivy slid the black folder across the table. Read it, she said. Victor flipped through the damning pages. His amusement vanished and his jaw tightened. Arya watched, heart hammering, as Victor's eyes grew sharp. Finally, he closed the folder and slid it back. What do you want? He asked. Ivy smiled slowly. Unfreeze our accounts, restore our business partnerships, and call off your quiet war against us. Victor leaned back, swirling his whiskey. You think you can blackmail me into submission? Ivy's smile was cold. I think you have more to lose than we do. After a long pause, Victor's tone dropped dangerously. I owe you nothing, and next time, I want to hold back. As they left the club, Arya exhaled shakily. That was the most terrifying thing I've ever done, she murmured. Ivy, however, remained silent. Beatrice's words echoed in her mind. Power isn't just about winning battles, it's about knowing which wars are worth fighting. Arya asked softly, Did we win? Ivy's eyes darkened. We survived, but it's only a warning. Next time, he will come to destroy us. The next morning, Vivid Glow's bank accounts were restored, distributors returned, and investors apologized as if nothing had happened. Yet Ivy knew the truth. This was merely a warning. Victor had agreed to back off for now, but when he returned, he would ensure they never escaped his grasp a second time. At last, Blackwood Manor was quiet. Arya sat alone at the kitchen table, stirring her tea as Ivy scrolled through reports on her phone. Finally, Arya whispered, What do we do now? Ivy exhaled slowly. We expand? We want to just survive, we will grow. Next time, we make sure he never gets back up. 2 days later, Ivy and Arya met with Veronica Kingsley once again in her elegant penthouse at Kingsley Tower. Veronica's icy gaze met theirs as she said, You survived your father's little game. Ivy smirked, Did you bet against us? Veronica chuckled, I never bet against those who have nothing to lose. Arya added, We need to discuss expansion. Veronica raised an eyebrow. Ambitious, aren't we? Ivy folded her arms. We need stronger distribution and bigger markets. We're good, but we're not untouchable yet. Veronica leaned forward. Fine, but I have one condition. Ivy's chin lifted. Name it. Veronica smiled sharply. I want 20% of Vivid Glow. Arya's breath caught. That's too much. Ivy's jaw tensed. Veronica shrugged. You need power, I have it. If I risk my reputation to grow your empire, I want my share. Arya's voice wavered. It might be what we need. Ivy clenched her fists. Then let us negotiate. How about 12%? Veronica studied Ivy for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Deal? With that handshake, Vivid Glow became unstoppable, but Ivy couldn't shake the thought that they had just invited another enemy into their midst. Veronica wasn't merely an investor, she was a predator, and predators never made deals without an ulterior motive. When they returned to Blackwood Manor, Beatrice Sterling awaited them with arms crossed and an unreadable expression. You made a deal, she stated matter-of-factly. Ivy sighed, we had to. Beatrice continued, Veronica will take us to the next level. She has connections, influence, and now power over you. Ivy looked away. We know what we're doing, she murmured. Beatrice's voice was low. I hope so, because if you don't, Veronica will eat you alive for the next month. With Veronica's backing, Vivid Glow exploded onto the national stage. Their products appeared in luxury stores across the country, sales tripled, and their name became synonymous with disruption. They were no longer outsiders, they were a force. But soon, small shifts occurred. A press release appeared under their name without their consent. New hires were made by Veronica without consulting them. A product launch was advanced despite Arya's protests that the formula wasn't ready. Ivy's jaw tightened. It was clear, Veronica was not just helping, they were taking control. 2 weeks later, Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower, with Arya following close behind. Veronica sat in her office, effortlessly poised. To what do I owe the pleasure? She mused lightly. Ivy tossed a file onto her desk. You are making decisions without us. Veronica raised an eyebrow. I'm making decisions for you, that's what partners do. Arya interjected. No, that's what owners do. Veronica smiled. And what exactly did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's voice grew taut. We didn't sign over our company. Veronica leaned back, her tone even. No, but you did sign over influence, and influence, darling, is far more powerful than ownership. Ivy's breath slowed. Veronica tapped her nails on the desk. Tell me, Ivy, what are you so afraid of? Ivy's voice turned icy. Losing control. Veronica chuckled. Control is an illusion. You don't control power, you wield it. If you're smart, you'll stop fighting me and start learning from me. Arya frowned. What does that mean? Veronica's smile deepened. I have a proposal, a way to make you more powerful than you've ever imagined. Ivy narrowed her eyes. And what is the price? Veronica's gaze darkened. I want vivid glow. Arya's stomach dropped. No, Ivy, what do you want? Veronica's voice was smooth as silk. I want 51%. Arya gasped. That means control. Veronica tilted her head. Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take vivid glow to levels you can't even imagine. You will still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you. Arya stood abruptly. We're done here. Ivy did not move. Arya's voice was urgent. We built this company from nothing. We bled for it, and you want to take it all? Veronica's tone remained cool. I haven't decided yet. Ivy hesitated only a moment before extending her hand. Deal, she said softly. Veronica's grip was firm. Then congratulations, she said. You just declared war. Later that night, Helena Blackwood and Victor gathered in their penthouse. Victor's expression was grave as he read financial news. They have become a threat, he remarked. Helena's eyes darkened. If I can't destroy them directly, I know someone who can. Victor's tone was measured. Maybe it's time to let this go. Helena's voice, however, was low and dangerous. Not yet. If they win, I will make sure you see what real destruction is. Ivy and Arya, watching from afar, knew that they had struck a dangerous nerve. They had forced Helena and Victor into a war of influence, a war that would decide not only their own future, but the fate of an entire industry. In the days that followed, despite the chaos that Victor had unleashed, frozen accounts, lost partnerships, and systematic sabotage, Vivid Glow began to recover. Ivy and Arya refused to be cowed. When a cease and desist order forced them to abandon the Sterling name, they rebranded, stripping away the old identity and emerging as Vivid Glow, a declaration that Helena's attempt to erase them had only given them purpose. In the silent grand library of Blackwood Manor, as Arya's pen scratched across paper, and the weight of the order still hung in the air, the fire in Ivy's chest burned brighter than ever. They had lost the name Sterling Labs, but they had gained something far more powerful: clarity. Vivid Glow, Ivy murmured, rolling the name over on her tongue. We built this ourselves. We own it. Our initials are our future. No one can take that away from us now. Arya nodded. Then let us make sure it's worth fighting for. Beatrice watched them from the corner, a ghost of a smile on her lips. For the first time in a long time, she saw herself in them, the hunger, the defiance, the refusal to be erased. Perhaps, just perhaps, these girls would be the ones to shake the world. Rebranding was easy compared to the real challenge: getting noticed in an industry that thrived on exclusivity and impossible ideals. With traditional advertising too expensive, Ivy and Arya devised a plan based on viral marketing, a bold, controversial strategy. The next day, Ivy created a raw, unedited video. No models, no polished editing, just Ivy and Arya in their dim laboratory. They told us beauty was unattainable, Ivy declared. They said we would never belong. But we make our own rules. Holding up a small vial of their signature serum, Ivy continued, "This is our challenge. Test our products for yourself." Within 24 hours, the video garnered 10,000 views and 1 million comments. Some critics ranted, "This is pathetic. Beauty is for the beautiful." But for every cruel comment, 10 women cheered them on. Women who had never felt seen by the industry, women tired of being told they were not enough. 3 weeks after the launch of Vivid Glow, the industry began to take notice. Major beauty brands spoke out. Articles appeared calling them gimmicky and reckless. Helena Blackwood was even quoted in Forbes, insisting that the beauty industry was built on prestige and quality, and that the twins' approach was reckless and unsustainable. But rather than killing their momentum, the criticism only fueled them. People were buying not just products, but an idea, a defiant stand against an industry built on insecurity. One evening, while Ivy and Aria worked late in the lab, the phone rang. Beatrice answered, her calm voice betraying a note of warning. After hanging up, she turned to the twins. "That was a warning," she said. Ivy's stomach tightened, but she smiled, knowing exactly who had sent it. If Helena thought that would scare them, she had made the biggest mistake of her life. A brick had crashed through the lab window, landing inches from Aria's feet, with a note tied around it that read, "Know your place." Aria's breath hitched, and Beatrice's grip tightened. Ivy picked up the note and read it slowly. "This is from our mother," she murmured. "A warning, a declaration of war." Beatrice knelt and examined a shard of glass, then looked up at Ivy. "This was a calculated move," she said calmly. "She wants to make you afraid." Aria swallowed hard. "It worked," Ivy admitted, exhaling slowly. "But we must not give her the satisfaction of thinking she has won." Smoothing out the crinkles of the note, Ivy crossed out the words "No Mother" with a red marker. "You will learn our place," she whispered. "We cannot act like victims. If we start acting weak, she wins." 2 days later, Vivid Glow secured a feature on one of New York's most watched business talk shows. The interview, intended to celebrate their meteoric rise, became a stage for war. The interviewer asked, "You built an empire from the ground up, but some say your brand is just a marketing gimmick, a reckless disruption of true beauty." Ivy smiled. "Some people in the industry hate us not because our products don't work, but because we prove that beauty isn't just inherited, it is created." Her words hung in the air. The clip went viral within minutes. Headlines exploded across social media. "Beauty war. Vivid Glow calls out industry titans. The ugly truth behind Vivid Glow's rise." The battle lines had been drawn. Soon, Vivid Glow's suppliers began pulling out. Shipments were delayed, and banks reassessed their loans. Beatrice slammed the phone in frustration. "They're trying to cut off your lifeline," she said. Ivy clenched her teeth. "It's Helena," Beatrice nodded. "She is making calls and pulling favors, and she has more favors to pull than you do." Aria sat at the dining table, staring at numbers on her laptop. "If this continues, we won't be able to fulfill our next orders." Ivy exhaled sharply, pacing the room. "I expected retaliation, but not this fast. Mother is not playing defense, she is going for the kill." For the first time, Ivy truly felt the weight of real power. Despite all they had built, Helena still had more money, more influence, more weapons, and she was not afraid to use them. Desperate, Aria suggested, "We need a partnership." Ivy was silent. "How about Veronica Kingsley?" Aria asked. Ivy's head snapped toward her. "Are you insane? She doesn't even know who we are." Aria pressed on, "But think, Veronica hates Helena. Their companies have been rivals for years. It doesn't mean she'll help us, but we can offer her something she wants. A chance to take down Helena. Beatrice tapped her fingers on the table. It's risky, she said, because if you go to her, you admit weakness. Ivy met Arya's gaze. Maybe weakness isn't what we show, she murmured. Finally, Ivy said, give me a meeting? Arya nodded. I already did. 2 hours later, Ivy and Arya stepped into Kingsley Tower. Veronica Kingsley sat behind a massive glass desk, watching them with cold amusement. I was wondering when you'd come, she said, swirling wine in her glass. I assume you realize just how small you still are. Ivy crossed her legs. We're not here to beg, she said. We're here to make a deal. Veronica raised a brow. And why would I help you? Ivy smiled. Because if we fall, Helena wins, and you both know you despise her. Veronica's smirk softened for a long moment before she said, interesting. Arya held her breath. Then, let us talk business. Veronica leaned forward. I don't do charity. If I help you, I expect something in return. Ivy smirked. We wouldn't be here if we weren't willing to pay the price. Veronica's eyes gleamed. Good. Then let us talk terms. After a tense negotiation, they agreed on 12%. Deal, Veronica said, and with that handshake, Vivid Glow became unstoppable. Yet as Ivy left Kingsley Tower with Arya, a nagging thought persisted. They had just made another deal with the devil, and this time they were not sure who would ultimately win. Power, after all, always came at a price. Later that evening, as Ivy and Arya returned to Blackwood Manor, Beatrice Sterling met them with folded arms. You made a deal, she stated simply. Ivy sighed. We had to. Beatrice tilted her head. Veronica will take you to the next level with her influence and connections, but remember, power shared is power contested. You must never let her control you completely. Ivy looked away, troubled by the thought that they had invited yet another enemy into their midst. We know what we're doing, she murmured. Beatrice's tone softened slightly. I hope so, because if you don't, Veronica will eat you alive for the next month. In the ensuing weeks, with Veronica's backing, Vivid Glow grew rapidly. Their products graced luxury stores nationwide, sales tripled, and their name became synonymous with disruption. Yet as growth surged, subtle shifts occurred. An unauthorized press release, strategic hires made by Veronica without consultation, and a product launch moved up despite Arya's protests. Ivy's jaw tightened as she realized Veronica was not simply helping them, she was gradually taking control. 2 weeks later, Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower with Arya in tow. Confronting Veronica in her office, Ivy demanded, You are making decisions without us. Veronica replied calmly, I'm making decisions for you. That is what partners do. Arya countered, No, that is what owners do. Veronica's eyes gleamed as she asked, What did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's voice grew icy. We did not sign over our company. Veronica leaned back. No, but you signed over influence, and influence is far more powerful than ownership. After a tense silence, Veronica added, Tell me, Ivy, what are you so afraid of? Ivy's answer was chilling. Losing control. Veronica chuckled softly. Control is an illusion. You do not control power, you wield it. If you are smart, you will stop fighting me and start learning from me. Arya frowned. What does that mean? Veronica's smile deepened. I have a proposal that will make you more powerful than you have ever imagined. Ivy's eyes narrowed. And what is the price? Veronica's tone turned dark. I want Vivid Glow. Arya's stomach dropped. No, Ivy insisted. What do you want? Veronica's voice was smooth and confident. I want 51%. Arya gasped. That means control. Veronica tilted her head. Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take Vivid Glow to heights you can't imagine. You will still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you. Arya abruptly stood. We're done here. Ivy and Arya exchanged a look of uncertainty, yet Ivy's voice was resolute. We built this company from nothing, and we will not hand it over without a fight. Veronica's smile was both playful and ominous as she added, Then you just declared war. That night, Helena Blackwood and Victor gathered in their penthouse, their expressions grim. Victor stated, Your actions have consequences. Helena's eyes burned with fury as she replied, If I cannot destroy them directly, then I will let someone else do it. Victor's tone was measured. Perhaps it is time to let this go. But Helena's voice was low and menacing. Not yet. If they win, you will witness true destruction. Ivy and Arya, far away in the silence of Blackwood Manor, realized they had struck a dangerous nerve. They had forced Helena and Victor into a war of influence, a war that would determine not only their own future, but the fate of the entire beauty industry. In the following days, despite the chaos unleashed by Victor frozen bank accounts, lost suppliers, and dismantled partnerships, Vivid Glow began to recover. Ivy and Arya refused to be defeated. At last, the frozen accounts were unfrozen, orders resumed, and investors apologized as if nothing had happened. Yet Ivy knew this was only a temporary reprieve, a warning that Victor would return with full force. As silence settled over Blackwood Manor, Arya sat at the kitchen table stirring her tea, while Ivy scrolled through reports on her phone. So what do we do now? Arya asked softly. Ivy exhaled slowly. We expand. We want he just survive, we will grow. Next time, we make sure he never gets back up. 2 days later, Ivy and Arya met with Veronica Kingsley one final time in her sleek penthouse at Kingsley Tower. Veronica's cool blue eyes regarded them. You survived your father's little game, she said, but now you must consider expansion. Ivy folded her arms. We need stronger distribution and bigger markets, she declared. Veronica leaned forward. I have one condition. Ivy's eyes narrowed. Name it. Veronica smiled knowingly. I want 20% of Vivid Glow. Arya's breath caught. That's too much. Ivy's jaw tensed. Veronica shrugged. You need power, I have it. If I risk my reputation to grow your empire, I expect my share. Arya interjected softly. It might be what we need. Ivy clenched her fists. Then let us negotiate 12%. Veronica studied Ivy, then nodded slowly. Deal? With that handshake, Vivid Glow was set to become unstoppable. Yet as Ivy and Arya left Kingsley Tower, Ivy couldn't shake the feeling that they had just made another deal with the devil, and that this time, the price might be more than they could bear. When they returned to Blackwood Manor, Beatrice Sterling was waiting, arms crossed and expression unreadable. You made a deal, she said simply. Ivy exhaled. We had to. Beatrice tilted her head. Veronica's influence now puts you on a new path. Remember, power always comes at a price. Ivy sighed. We know what we're doing. Beatrice's eyes softened just a bit. I hope so, because if you don't, Veronica will eventually take over completely. In the following weeks, with Veronica's backing, Vivid Glow's products hit luxury stores across the country. Sales tripled, and their name became synonymous with disruption in the beauty industry. They were no longer outsiders, they were a formidable force. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmered. Veronica began issuing press releases under Vivid Glow's name without approval, making strategic hires without consulting Ivy and Arya, and even moving up product launches despite Arya's protests. Ivy's jaw tightened as she realized Veronica wasn't just helping them grow, she was gradually seizing control. 2 weeks later, Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower, Arya trailing behind her, and confronted Veronica once again. "You are making decisions without us," Ivy shouted. Veronica raised an eyebrow and replied coolly, "I'm making decisions for you. That's what partners do." Arya interjected, "No, that's what owners do." Veronica smiled sharply. "And what did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's voice turned icy. "We did not sign over our company." Veronica leaned back and said, "No, but you did sign over influence, and influence is far more powerful than ownership." After a long silence, Veronica tapped her nails on the desk. "Tell me, Ivy, what are you so afraid of?" Ivy's voice was chilling, losing control. Veronica chuckled softly. "Control is an illusion. You do not control power, you wield it. If you're smart, you'll stop fighting me and start learning from me." Arya frowned. "What does that mean?" Veronica's smile deepened. "I have a proposal that will make you more powerful than you've ever imagined." Ivy narrowed her eyes. "And what is the price?" Veronica's tone turned dark. "I want vivid glow." Arya's stomach dropped. "No, Ivy, what do you want?" Veronica's voice was smooth. "I want 51%. Arya gasped. "That means control." Veronica tilted her head. "Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take vivid glow to unimaginable heights. You will still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you." Arya stood abruptly. "We're done here." Ivy and Arya exchanged looks of uncertainty, but Ivy's tone was resolute. "We built this company from nothing, and we will not hand it over without a fight." Veronica's smile was playful yet ominous. "Then you've just declared war." That night, as Ivy and Arya returned to Blackwood Manor, they knew the next move was critical. Ivy sat at the head of the long mahogany dining table, a notebook open before her, while Arya watched intently. "We are not going to let Helena win," Ivy said quietly. "I have a plan not to take her down directly, but to make her destroy herself." Arya's eyes widened. "How do we do that?" Ivy tapped the table thoughtfully. "For years, Helena has done everything to erase us, but now we have power and influence. Deep down, she wants us back not as daughters, but as assets. We will let her think that we are ready to make a deal with her, and then we will trap her." Beatrice, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "What happens if she takes the bait?" Ivy smiled. "Then the whole world will see her true face." The plan was simple, a subtle rumor planted in the right circles, just loud enough for Helena to hear, causing investors to doubt her leadership. 2 days later, Helena Blackwood made her move, inviting the three of them to an exclusive dinner at the Blackwood estate. In the grand dining room, lit by flickering candles and polished mahogany, Helena greeted them with a smile that concealed her calculating nature. "My daughters," she murmured, "I have long waited for this moment." Ivy and Arya exchanged glances. Helena raised her glass. "Shall we toast to family?" Ivy forced a smile and replied, "To new beginnings." 3 glasses clinked, and the trap was set. Helena leaned back, studying them. "I must say, I wasn't expecting you to stand on your own," she said softly. Ivy arched an eyebrow. "Perhaps you were expecting less." Arya's hands trembled slightly, but Ivy remained calm. "We have made enemies," Helena murmured, "and the industry isn't built for people like us." She paused, tapping her wine glass. "Perhaps we need to reconsider our approach." Her eyes gleamed with a hint of triumph as she continued, "I knew you were intelligent, you just needed time to see the truth." Ivy asked quietly, "And what truth is that?" Helena smiled, "That you can have everything: power, influence, security. All you have to do is come back to the Blackwood name." Ivy's pulse remained steady. "And what would that look like?" Helena's smile widened. "Simple. Merge Vivid Glow with Blackwood Enterprises. You get the empire you've always wanted, and I get my daughters back." Ivy's stomach twisted with conflicting emotions. "I don't know, Mother," she murmured. Helena leaned in. "If our investors or partners learn of this, the backlash could be huge." Ivy's eyes hardened. "So it must remain off the record." Helena nodded approvingly. "Exactly." Arya glanced at Ivy, and Ivy gave the slightest nod. Then Arya activated a live recording feed with a press of a button on her bracelet. An anonymous link was shared with every major news outlet. Suddenly, Helena boasted openly about orchestrating attacks on Vivid Glow, admitting she had bribed suppliers and manipulated investors. "The industry," she declared loudly, "belongs not to the best, but to the most ruthless." The world listened as every word was broadcast. The fallout was immediate. Breaking news revealed Helena Blackwood's corruption, and within hours, corporate sponsors fled, lawsuits were filed, stock prices plummeted, and Helena became public enemy number one. Her once untouchable empire crumbled overnight. Ivy and Arya watched the news in the grand library of Blackwood Manor, their expressions resolute. "It's over," Arya whispered. Ivy replied firmly, "Not yet, we have one more move." Later that night, Helena's penthouse was silent. The staff had vanished, and the once imposing home felt empty. When the doorbell rang, Helena, trembling slightly, opened the door to find Ivy and Arya dressed in black. No words were exchanged. Finally, Helena murmured, "You think this makes you powerful? You think taking me down means you've won?" Ivy's face remained impassive. "We are no longer afraid of you," she said evenly. Helena's jaw tightened as she stared at her drink. "I spent my whole life building something that mattered, something greater than myself, and now it's all gone." Arya whispered, "You did that to yourself." For a moment, Helena's perfect mask cracked, revealing regret not for abandoning them or hurting them, but for losing what she truly cared about: winning, power, control. Without another word, Ivy stood. "Goodbye, Mother." Helena did not respond, just sat staring into her empty glass. When Ivy and Arya walked out that door, they knew they would never see her again. Helena Blackwood was gone. 1 week later, Vivid Glow held a press conference. Ivy stood before hundreds of reporters, with Arya at her side, as cameras flashed. For years, Ivy declared in a steady voice, the beauty industry belonged to people like Helena Blackwood. That ends today, now it belongs to us. The crowd erupted. With that, the Blackwood name was finally erased, and the twins had won. As the sun set over New York City, casting a golden glow over Blackwood Manor, the air inside felt lighter than it had in 20 years. Ivy and Arya were free from fear, free from constant battles, free from the shadow of the Blackwood name. In the Manor's balcony, Arya gazed over the skyline, and Ivy handed her a glass of champagne. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Arya sighed, "So what now?" Ivy smirked. "Now, we build something bigger." Arya rolled her eyes. "Of course," she said softly. Ivy took a sip of champagne and added, "This isn't just about revenge anymore." She gestured toward the city. Helena's empire is gone, but the industry, and the way people see themselves, remains broken. Arya studied her sister. "You really think we can change that?" Ivy's lips curled into a confident smile. I already believe we have. 2 months later, Vivid Glow officially launched its most ambitious project yet, a foundation for women in business. A program that funded female entrepreneurs and supported real, unfiltered beauty. No more impossible standards. No more exclusivity, only power. Ivy and Aria were no longer just running a brand, they were rewriting the rules. And the world was finally listening. One final letter arrived at the manor, no return address, no signature, just a single handwritten note. I was wrong about you. You won. Ivy stared at it for a long time before slowly folding it and setting it aside. She did not need an apology or closure, because deep down, she had won a long time ago. Now, she was ready to move forward. The world had once called them plain, unwanted, and forgotten, but they had rewritten their story. They had transformed pain, rejection, and scars into power, because beauty was never the goal, strength was. And in the end, that had always been their greatest weapon. The end.